everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to talk to you today about a book that I haven't officially read yet, but I'm very excited to. This is going to go into my organizational charts of weird tales, but it's a fascinating book and I have read the introduction and it's something I'd like to share because there are things in here that maybe other people want to read. I went to one of my favorite bookstores a few months, maybe a year or two ago, and it was a rainy day and I came across this book called Rivals of Weird Tales, and I didn't buy it at the time. I thought, no, it's okay. And then I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like on my mind. So I caved, I ordered it, and it just arrived. And I'm very excited about it. And now that I know a little bit more of the background of weird tales and the genre in general, I think I can understand the context of this book. So this book in itself is an anthology, and it came out in 1990. So in 1923, the Weird Tales magazine got started, and this was their first issue. This is a facsimile. And for a good decade or so, or almost a decade, Weird Tales had a hold on its audience and on the sort of market of weird fiction. And the mainstream publishers didn't know that there was a market for this kind of stuff and was focusing mostly on literary things and, you know, highbrow fiction. And when they noticed that there was this boom of interest in pulp fiction, they started to try to imitate and rival some of this. And they were trying and it wasn't hitting until one magazine got to publish one short story by H.P. Lovecraft. So after that, the gates kind of opened, and a lot of weird fiction authors like Robert D. Howard or Clark Ashton Smith started publishing and selling some of their stories to other publications besides Weird Tales. And all of these magazines, most of them at least, were short-lived. They did not have the triumph that is Weird Tales. In fact, Weird Tales has this kind of slogan that it's the magazine that never dies. Some of these only had maybe 5 issues or a few publication years and then collapsed. A few near the end lived longer, and they had different kinds of science fiction and fantasy as well. For all the magazines that I found, I've also created a link to the digitized copy from the Internet Archive, because a lot of these have been digitized and you can flip through them, zoom in, see the ads, the whole thing. It's phenomenal. And another thing that I really love about this is that just like the Weird Tales magazines, they would have kind of a catch sentence underneath each story in the description, like in the table of contents. So for example, for Cool Air, you would have, "Cold man kept the cold room on the hottest of summer days, not for comfort, but out of fear." And then this is supposed to like hook you in. And it works. I definitely would like to read that had I not read it. And you might recognize that title because it's been turned into a movie. In fact, some of the stories in here have been adapted for television or episodes of some sci-fi shows or some movies. So they're not all very obscure. So the very first magazine that we're dealing with is Tales of Magic and Mystery, which ran from December of 1927 to April of 1928. And this was the one that only had 5. And I found it, I linked it down below so you can take a look. And this is the one that successfully opened the gates with the H.P. Lovecraft story. It is the only story in here from that magazine. And then we have 3 stories featuring Robert D. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, and Jack Williamson. And this is from Strange Tales of Mystery and Terror. And this ran from September of 1931 to January of 1933. The next magazine is called Horror Stories, from January 1935 to April-May of 1941. This one only has 1 story called The Imp of Satan, so that's fun. The next magazine is Strange Stories, from February 1939 to February 1941. Again, very short-lived. But this one has a few. So this one has at least 7 stories here. Story by Henry Kuttner, August Derleth, C.L. Moore, Manly Wade Wellman, and a few others, Seabury Quinn. So these are some of the real OGs of Weird Tales. and they were published in Strange Stories for the first time, or at least these short stories. And I can clarify more when I link them down below. Unknown, or Unknown Worlds, is a magazine that got started by John W. Campbell, and he's the same person who edited and worked on Astounding, which I've spoken at length in another video. And he already had his hand in the sci-fi field. So he tried to kind of go on the darker speculative here, and we have a few stories, but they are leaning a bit more towards the SFF that we kind of know more in the mainstream. You have people like Lester Del Rey, Theodore Sturgeon, Elsprog de Camp, Fritz Leiber, and a lot of stories from this one because it went on from 1939 to 1943. The next magazine is one that only has one story from it, and it's Fantastic Adventures. This went on from 1939 to 1953, and the only story from them here is from Robert Bloch. We have Stirring Science Stories from February 1941 to March of 1942, 2 stories from them. And then the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, it says fall 1949 and then just a dash. So this is one of the more successful ones. I do have a copy that's pretty vintage that I got recently of that magazine, but it's a bit newer than the times here. I just think it's so cool to see these live with the actual pulpy material. But there's only 3 stories from that magazine here, and then the very last one is Beyond Fantasy Fiction. This was on from 1953 to 55, so just 2 years. And then we have one story by Richard Matheson called Sorry, Right Number. And the cover for this was taken from one of the magazine's covers, the original ones, and it's so cool. I really like it. I like the kind of library backdrop and this like strange thing. I got so excited about this book, and I want to really savor these stories. I want to like spend time on one at a time. I don't want to just like fly through the entire anthology. And I thought maybe I should share it with more people first so that other people could read some of these. Like I've said in a previous video, I am currently organizing and sorting some of my weird tales, and this is among them. So this is also going in the chart, and I'm gonna have them in my weird tales folder so that it's all together and I know what I've read and if there are repeats. So please let me know if you have read this, and if you haven't, is this something that interests you? So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. Bye!